Okay, good morning, everyone. How are you? How is everything? Today, we're going to review on the foreign policy that we talked about the past 2 weeks. Okay, so let's start right now. Okay, so I'm gonna share with you the PowerPoint presentation. While I do, I want you to kind of remember what we talked about, the different points. It's very important for you to know the different points that we talked about, okay, for foreign policy. What is foreign policy? Why is it important? What are the different characteristics? Okay, so let's right now start. I'm just going to upload the PowerPoint presentation so we can review together. Okay, now while I do, why don't you think about it? And then you can, if you have that option on the whiteboard, why don't you write kind of on the whiteboard your own definition or characteristics of foreign policy until I get that PowerPoint presentation. Now everyone is coming in to the class, so that too, okay? And remember, I put on the WhatsApp group today that by today afternoon you should be done with the first assignment. I had the first assignment on 2 weeks ago, okay? So make sure that you finish up the first assignment, okay? It's on the course Sonovia. Yes, it's with the PowerPoint and the video link. So make sure you do it by today afternoon. Okay, great. Okay. So I want you also to open up your cameras. Okay. Please open up your camera so that we can discuss today as a review. Yes. So while it's uploading. Okay. Okay, it's taking some time. So why don't we go to the whiteboard, and then today we can finish up on the video. Okay. Okay. So let's go to the whiteboard. Okay. Okay, can you see the whiteboard? Yes? Okay. Let's start. Okay, so can you hear me, everyone? Yes. Okay, so let's start. Today, basically, we talk about the definition of foreign policy. So foreign policy, number one, is basically, okay, it's freezing. The connection is not that great today, so hopefully we will work it out. Okay. Yes. Okay, open. So right now, Let's start with foreign policy definition. I want you guys to open up your cameras. Yes. Malak, or Dia, sorry. Dia, please tell me, what is foreign policy? What's foreign policy? Dia, Laith, Malak? Let's try to remember from before. Okay, what's the definition of foreign policy? Okay. Number one, the first characteristic is that it is external. Okay, relationship. And communication with externalship and communication external relationship and communication with outside the relationship and communication from the government, so outside the government. Okay, so all the communication and relationships external to the government, okay, or sometimes a big organization, but usually it's the government. Okay, so here foreign policy is the government. Yes, so mostly it is for the government. Let's make it pink. Okay, okay, great. Okay. So, external relationship communication from the government. So all the communication relationships external to the government or sometimes a big organization. But let's give it to the government here. It's mainly the government. The big organization can be like the United Nations. However, it is for usually governments. Okay? Okay. What are some characteristics we talked about? We talked about many different characteristics and roles for foreign policy. Okay, why don't we name some today together? Let's okay. So let's name some of them. Let's see. Omar, Laith, Malak, Ahmed. Let's name some, okay? Now, before we go into, okay, excellent job. Okay, Dia came back. Okay, as you can see, the connection is not that great, okay? But we will try to discuss some things here, okay? So, excellent. Okay, so everyone is in here. Okay, great. Okay. Great. So I want you guys to do some talking today. Yes, we did a lot of talking this week. I did. I explained a lot. Some of you guys discussed and it was great. I want the others two to discuss today, okay? So, excellent. Izzeddin is here and Dia came back. Okay, great. So while everyone is coming in, I want you to think about the different characteristics and roles for foreign policy. I'm just going to say a few announcements. The first one is the first homework assignment that I put from the beginning of the trimester too. So in the beginning of the semester, make sure you do it by this afternoon. Okay, so make sure you do the first assignment by this afternoon. Okay, that's number one. Number two, I will put other assignments by today night. Okay, for sure. So if you did the first one, make sure you check up on the other ones so you can do them. Yes. The other ones will be due maximum by Sunday, not more. Okay. And you have the quiz by Sunday. Also, we will have the quiz. So make sure you study these points that we review today and the PowerPoint, and you review what we talked about in the past sessions. It's very important. I'll put the video that I shared with you yesterday. The video was very, very important. It gives you another kind of perspective on foreign policy. The first video, we talked about the different points and from the PowerPoint and everything. It was mainly about US policy, US foreign policy. The second video is more close to our culture. It's more most of the governments in the world. It is more from the foreign policy perspective of Pakistan and India, okay, closer to our region. Usually in this region, foreign policy is such. So it has this definition, the role, and characteristics. Now you'll find there's a lot of similarities actually, and it's pretty much the same. However, you would find that because the US is a world power, it's very powerful. That's why the foreign policy is very different than the foreign policy of, for example, close to our region, okay, or even in Egypt, or in Africa, or in Asia. So as I said, the foreign policy role, what it plays, what it does, it differs from country to country, place to place. However, the big general characteristics are the same, okay? Okay, so let us right now go into the different characteristics, okay? Does anyone have any questions, by the way, so far? Yes? Okay. Okay, great. Okay, so let's right now move to different characteristics. What's the first characteristic? Okay, I want you guys for not only for your participation behavior, but also to get into the rhythm of discussing, debating, and also everything else. Okay. Yes. So what's the first one? What about security? Securing the lands. Okay, security. Okay, securing the lands. Security includes army, right? Army, war, peace. Okay. Army, war, peace. What else? Securing from neighboring countries, from neighboring or other countries, right? Okay. Okay, so this is all security. Army, war, peace, securing from neighboring other countries, and also security is part of internal and external threat, right, to security. It may be in the country or outside of the country. So maybe there are other, maybe it's a militia, maybe it's a mafia, maybe it's, for example, terrorism. It comes from other countries to the country, from other maybe terrorist groups outside of the country or inside of the country, or from other you know, for example, if it's a militia, if it's something that has to do with stealing, with maybe bank robbery or anything else, sometimes it's threat for the country, right? The economy can go down. So what they do, they do relationships with other governments, okay? Okay. That's important, okay? So security. Any questions on that? Yes? So that's really important, okay? Number 2. You have security, and that's the next one is the economy, right? Remember yesterday on the video, we'll see it today, he talked about economic development. This is very important, especially in this region, okay? Obviously, for big countries like the US, Canada, or Europe, this is also really important, and they work on it. However, usually for foreign policy, they have different priorities of developing in the world also, okay? But economic development usually is a number one for countries that have this priority because they are weak in it, or they need a lot of work. So they need, for example, financial aid or aid from other entities like organizations, governments, business corporations that help out the country, okay? So it depends, right? Okay, economic development, right? It includes here relationships to improve economy, okay? And also financial aid. Financial aid, support for development. Here we have, like we saw for China, the policy, right? Support for development policies made from the country, okay, and have international support. This is done through foreign policy, okay? So for example, like in China, we saw China had a 5-year policy for industry and economic development. Can it go by itself? So can it just say, you know, I have a 5-year policy, I'm going to make it for China, and obviously it's going to affect the world, but I won't tell anyone. I won't tell the foreign policy sector. Can it do that? No, right? It has to tell its foreign policy sector. Foreign policy does is external and internal relationships in the country, outside the country. It does the dialogue, the diplomacy, make sure the media knows, and make sure the UN knows, everyone knows what the 5-year policy is, because everyone will be affected by it, and it needs help, it needs support. Maybe some entities, they feel like there's something wrong. Maybe on the contrary, it's great. And not only that, you know, it needs a kind of, you know, maybe support financially, support in research, whatever it can, okay? In the end, it will develop China and the world too. That's the beauty of foreign policy, is that it's a kind of external and internal help from all. So imagine how important it is, this sector of government. It's a communication between everyone in the country and in international terms, okay? So this is really important. Okay. So that's number 1. Number 2, the next point that's really important in economic development is that you have the UN and you have everyone else in this development, okay, and all the different organizations, not only the UN. The UN is the biggest one, and we will talk about it more. For sure, if you study foreign policy afterwards or you go into international diplomacy, international relations, the UN is number one that you need to know. You need to go into the MUN. You need to be familiar with it, right? Because it's the most important entity in the world in that sense. Any person that goes ambassador foreign policy will for sure go into into that line of dealing with the United Nations, as different organizations, the research. Okay, so make sure you know that the UN is number one. The other organizations in the world are very important, but not like the United Nations. Does anyone know other organizations that have to do with human rights or with international relations and such, and that? Can anyone tell me?
General Assembly,
Excellent.
United Nations Security Council,
Good job. This is
International
in
Court
the
of
United Nations.
Justice.
Good job. Excellent. These are the different
Yes.
branches in the United Nations. Okay, good job.
Drugs and crime, women rights.
Yes.
I can't remember anything. I guess that's it.
Okay, great. So excellent job. These are the different entities in the UN. Okay. What about besides the UN? Where other? Do you guys anyone is familiar with it?
Repeat the question, please.
Besides the UN, what else is there? Like there's United Nations, right? Are there any human rights organizations, international relation organizations, development organizations in the world? You know, anyone you can think about. Big like the UN. Obviously, the UN is the biggest one. Like which ones? Excellent job, Resident. You have extra credit for today. Excellent job.
The WHO, I guess.
World Health Organization. Excellent.
World Health Organization.
That's excellent. That's under the UN, right?
Okay. I guess, and also excellent. The World Health Organization sometimes is involved in the Security Council. Like there was this year that I did MUN at school. I was in grade 8, and like we were talking about the Afghanistan and the Taliban situation, opium, things like that.
Good job.
And the World Health Organization was present, and it was talking from the perspective of attacking Afghanistan for naturally spreading opium through its land.
Okay.
So it doesn't always have to be like talking about foreign policy. It might be talking from common sense.
Okay. Okay, I can't hear you. Excellent job. That's a really good point. Okay, thank you for sharing with us. And the other ones are, for example, Amnesty International is one. It's a very famous one, has to do with human rights. Amnesty International more with research and dialogue in more specialized, specialized research, specialized individuals, specialized branches that it has with human rights than the UN. The UN is more general and it's more official, it's older, and obviously it's much bigger, it's much more powerful. You can't really compare here. Amnesty International is more, it's a big organization that has its own, authority and decision making in the world for human rights and certain objectives. Okay, so for development and other important aspects of human rights that should be done in the world. It makes sure the government, accomplishes it. Okay, accomplishes the different objectives. It makes sure everyone signs up the treaties and so forth. Okay. Now, obviously, they have their own relationships between each other, the different organizations, right, and with the governments and everything else. Do you see here the relationships and the communication and also diplomacy is very important, and the objectives of why? You have security, economy, human rights, development, okay, environment. These are all really important, okay? So we're here putting the picture of, in a kind of review form of what we took so far in the last 2 weeks and putting it in real life situations and having a nice review for it. So make sure you know the definition. Make sure you know the different characteristics, okay? Excellent. Okay, so any questions so far? I hope, Residine, everything's working out with you. Yes, okay. It's mute suddenly. Okay, so
Yes,
yes,
so
okay,
everything's
great.
great. My internet was just lagging for a moment, but everything's great.
Okay, great. Anyone else wants to add to what Residine said about human rights and everything else? Okay, so right now, what about environment? Give me an example. How would the foreign policy work on environment? Okay, why would environment be important? Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Like protecting the trees.
excellent. Protecting the trees. That's a really good example. Good job. This is Dia, right?
Yes.
Okay, so for example, if you're in the foreign policy sector of the government, for example, in Egypt, how would you go by with protecting trees? Excellent job. You get extra credit like Azzuddin today. So think about how would you go by? Would you make a dialogue with different countries? Think about like an example, how would you go by with that?
Like I will tell them to stop cutting trees because it increased the global warming.
Good job. So sub countries, maybe you can do a policy, right? A 5-year
Yes.
policy, 2-year policy, and you can have support from other neighboring countries and from other countries in the world or organizations that are interested and would like to, would like to develop in that area in your country and other countries, right? So you have organizations like the UN and its different branches with the environment that deals with, if there's any country that wants to decrease cutting trees or the environment, it deals with that, right? Or also other organizations with the environment. There are other international organizations that have to do with securing environment. And so it's in their interest and they would fund you, they would support you in that sense, right? So do you see how complicated it is? This is a simple example of it. We don't want to make it too complicated, but to put you in the picture of that. Okay. Okay. Excellent job, Dia. So, for example, as you can see, any program done by the foreign policy, usually it is done with making sure, number one, the government accepts, right? So that's why usually foreign policy is direct to the decision maker in the government, either the president or the king, queen, or, for example, uh, the parliament, the head of parliament, right? It depends on who is the head of state in the sense of who decides the final decision in all its aspects. Okay, like for example, if it's war, if it's peace, if environment, economic development, anything. Okay, what else did we not talk about? A characteristic. What else did we not talk about here? We talked about economic development, security. What else? What else do you think is important for the foreign policy to deal with? What else?
Yes, I could say something, but I'm not sure.
Yes, yes, Omar.
Because you're asking about the foreign policy to the يعني related to the environment, صح ولا؟
Not only no, not environment is one of them, right? Environment is.
ماشي.
I'm asking other one. So we talk about security, internal, external threat to the security of the country, economic development. We talked about environment. What else besides environment and security and economic development? What else is important in foreign policy? Think about it. Okay, what about human rights, right? Human rights issues. Okay, some countries, many countries, they are interested in that. They want to improve their human rights status. They want to improve their development, right? In human terms. Okay, so you have human rights. Excellent job, Omar. So I want everyone to think about it. You have human rights. You have development of the country in all aspects. Maybe not only in economic development, education. You have education. You have maybe transportation. You have maybe they want to develop in a sense, cultural sense. They want to make other countries aware of their culture and their own country aware of their culture. Sometimes, for example, the UN as the UNESCO or UNHCR, it deals a lot with that. It deals a lot with countries that want to improve their education level, they want to improve their cultural level. The foreign policy obviously will deal with this because they have to have a lot of diplomacy, a lot of maybe plans and policies with the UN and with other sectors in the world. Okay, other governments are highly interested, by the way, in their foreign policy sector to develop and have a kind of 5-year plan or develop in the future better systems in the world. It's in their interest, okay, to develop, especially big countries like the U.S., Europe, European Union, the Arab League. Usually, leagues and unions in the world are highly interested in such things. Okay, so make sure you know that it's not limited to security or internal, external, economic development. Also, development in general of anything you can think about. Maybe the status of gender in the country, the status of females and males. Okay, female rights, right? Feminist activities. There are also the family situation, right? How is the family situation in the different countries? Okay, so make sure you know that. Great. Okay, anything else you want to add? You feel like foreign policy is really important to have, or it has, or anything? Okay, great. Why don't we go to the video, okay, that we watched last time? Yes, so let's go to it. Okay, let me share it here. Okay. Okay, this is, yes. Okay, let's share it.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hello everyone. I hope
Okay.
you all have a wonderful.
Last time we talked about definition, factors, and importance, right? Okay, now we will talk about right now tools and stages for the foreign policy. Yes? So let's go to tools and stages for foreign policy. Okay, tools for foreign policy.
Defense or military discourages aggression from another country or another state. It is a very helpful tool for the protection of any country. It is basically protecting the internal side of a state from the external threat. Another tool is alliances. So alliances are the combination of military forces to create a strong military power. So they are formed together to protect each other.
Remis, Miss.
Miss Dino, we cannot hear things, huh?
Okay, you're not hearing? Is that you're
We
not
can't
hearing?
we can't hear anything.
You can't hear? Okay, thank you so much for telling me. Okay. Okay, can you, okay, you can't hear anything. Okay, great. Thank you so much for telling me. Okay. I thought you can hear what he's saying. Okay, great. Then let me stop the video and, okay, so let's try it again. Let's see if you can hear. Can you hear right now?
The policy impact.
No?
That was the stages of foreign policy.
Yes,
setting.
this is better, Miss.
It's better? Okay, great. Can you hear it clearly or is it not clear?
No, nothing is working.
It's not clear. Okay. Okay, let's just leave the video. Okay. So let us go back to the whiteboard and just do a review. Okay. So number one, for Sunday, we're going to have the quiz on what we took so far. You have the PowerPoint on the course Sonovia, and also you have the video. Okay, I'll upload this one too. I want you to look at the definition. Why foreign policy is important for different countries in the world. And also, why is it important, the different characteristics that, that you have, okay, in foreign policy, right? So the different characteristics are also important for the foreign policy. For example, security, internal, external relations that secure the lands, and the different things under security. Like, for example,